Mamie Stein was sworn in as president of IATSE 489 on March 1st, 2021. Mamie has worked on many different productions in many different capacities, but most often as a set dresser. Please welcome IATSE President Mamie Stein.
There's two different kinds of unions, and there's, if you're familiar with Local 3, which is also under the IATSE umbrella, Local 3 has a hiring hall. They have a call steward, they have a seniority list, which means the longer you've worked, the further up the list you go. And the higher up you get the first calls, the lower down you get the last calls. IATSE 489, which is also under the international umbrella, we are a studio mechanics local. We cover the film, television, that sort of thing. We don't touch stage work. We are, I believe they call it a non-discriminatory union, and I don't mean discriminatory like don't, but it basically describes how we function. We don't have a seniority list. We don't have a hiring hall. It's a merit-based system where once you've gotten in, the way you continue to get your jobs is how sharp you keep your skill set, how reliable you are, how easy you are to work with, that type of thing. So it's completely merit-based, which is what that sentence is kind of getting toward. So we don't go out and get you jobs. We fight to get the contracts. When movies come in, when things come in that sometimes are on the edge of like a budget that could handle a union crew, we'll go ahead and negotiate that a little bit. We do, commercials, stuff like that. But we provide you with the information, but you have to go out and actually get your job. What we do for our members, though, is we enforce. There's a blanket contract, and then several sub-spokes from it, depending on the budget of your movie, called the Area Standards Agreement. And every several years, it's revisited and renegotiated by the international and the producers. And that's our contract. That tells you when. How much turnaround time you have, what you get paid if they invade that, when your meals are supposed to be, rates, basic rates, we all have a minimum rate that they can't pay you any less. And we can't accept any less, we can't undercut each other to get the job. So that's something we're responsible for. But yeah, and so all of those standards are upheld by the union. So if somebody crosses that line, if you were on a non-union project, you can argue it, but you might not have any traction for that. And you may, especially in cases where it's unsafe, you may have to just kind of leave the job if you want to stay safe. Where with the union, we can go in and say, oh, wait a minute. This is violating this part of the thing, or this is not an OSHA approved thing you're doing here. There's a thing that union members have that's called, it's your Weingarten Rights. Anybody that belongs to a union has Weingarten Rights, which again goes back to a Supreme Court case. But if you're about to be brought in and disciplined for something and you're afraid you're about to lose your job, you have the right to have a union member present with you to advise you of anything that might be crossing a line. If you're like a protected classification, due to your sex, your ethnicity, your things that fall under Americans with disabilities, that type of thing. We're kind of there to defend against that kind of stuff and keep an eye out for that. So we have this trust fund. So if as a union member you become ill, like you get cancer or you get some injury that's not work related, that's not covered by workman's comp, or if you have a baby, this is like such a big thing. If you have a baby, we now have the ability to pay you for that time based on the time you've been in the union, which has been a massive help for our members. And that's just going to continue to grow because our geniuses that put it together figured out how to make it self-sustaining. So we're really excited about that and hoping to create more programs like that.